Assalamu alaikum everyone, this is Amar bin Salim. I'm a marketing specialist with the LUMS Office of Advancement. Welcome to today's podcast. We'll be talking about the Shaikh Ahmad Hassan School of Law and the program that we offer through the School of Law, BA-LL.B honors program. We'll be talking about the funding opportunities, scholarship opportunities, admission criteria, important dates, what matters the most, and of course, multiple other discussion points as well. And the best thing about today's program is that I have been joined by Dr. Sadaf Aziz and Mr. Qasim Abbas. Dr. Sadaf Aziz is the Dean at the Shaikh Ahmad Hassan School of Law, and Qasim is a senior enrolled in the undergraduate program at the same school. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you for having us.
Dr. Sadaf, I'm going to start with you. Why SAHSOL? Why should a potential applicant apply to the School of Law at LUMS and not other schools in Pakistan at least?
Well, I think the question begins with why LUMS, and I think that there is, sure. So I think LUMS is, it's both a beautiful campus and it has a diverse student body that comes from across the country and further afield. It also provides opportunities to learn across multiple disciplines. So we have 5 schools here, of which the law school is one. The structure of our program particularly is fed from that kind of interdisciplinarity. So we are the founding school for what has now become the nationally required standard of legal education, which is a combined consolidated BA-LL.B program. So it is, as you mentioned, a 5-year program. So the first 2 years, students spend primarily in other schools and primarily within the School of Social Sciences and Humanities, where a great many of the required courses of a broader undergraduate degree are provided for students. And in those 2 years, they basically accrue, they have a certain amount of flexibility in the courses that they take. But effectively, they can take across, multiple disciplines. So whether that's history, sociology, anthropology, various other of the kind of disciplinary streams in those other schools, and then they come into the 3-year program. So the 3-year program, which is offered exclusively through the law school, does not sever itself from that interdisciplinarity. So I guess a big thing that sets our school apart is that we don't think of law as simply practitioner's law. We think of law as a field of study, which is like a social science, like any other social science. So we want students to have a critical, engaged understanding of the law, look at law in its historical context, look at it in its broader societal context, understand, economic relations as both embedded in the law and as impacted by the law. So I guess, and in short, the answer to that, or what I'm aiming at through that, is that we have a really engaged, research-oriented faculty. Who focus both on their own scholarship, but also in having a kind of evolutionary way of dealing with the legal curriculum, of revising those courses, of incorporating new changes in the law in a very regular way. Right. Yeah, those, I guess, then.
And you also talked about the question that I had to ask later, the interdisciplinarity aspect, of course, that the first 2 years you'll have to go for general university courses, followed by 3 years of very rigorous legal education program. So, Qasim, आप तो already उसमें उससे गुजर चुके हैं. You're in your 4th year now, and next year will be your super senior year, inshallah. And by the way, you had 3.97 or 4.
It's a 3.97 right now.
So what's left?
That's a question that I usually get, and it's still not the best in the law school. So there are a lot of people.
Oh.
There are a lot of people above me.
Well, we have another sofa space here, so maybe we should have that person as well.
So it's just the atmosphere the LUMS does give its students, which is not just a healthy competition, but also to understand what your aims are, what you wish to achieve. And like Dr. Sadaf said, that there is a lot of interdisciplinary approach to the way law is taught in the law school. And I think if I talk about my own experience, for the first 2 years, I took courses in biology, I took courses in economics, I took courses of policy, philosophy. So it was everything that I could take in LUMS that I did. And now that I look back, it has given me a very different understanding of the law as a subject as well. Because now I don't see law as a very linear subject in terms of having a statute, implementing it, getting the case law, finding an answer to a question. But I also do see it as मैं इसमें क्या बेहतर कर सकता हूँ, या इसमें क्या सही नहीं है, या क्या इससे बेहतर हो सकता है. So I think these questions, these analytical questions, are usually given to us during our courses by our professors, and this is built in us as students of LUMS. So that's essentially why the degree is so wholesome in nature and does help you as a student of law.
Were you aware of this, this model of the degree program, the LLB program at LUMS prior to joining the university? क्योंकि मतलब कभी ऐसा हुआ कि यार सोचो मैं तो लॉ के लिए अप्लाई किया था, but then I have to study biology at the School of Science and Engineering. Not many students do that, of course, in Pakistan.
So my story would be a little different. मैंने law नहीं करना था, and I ended up in the law school, I'd say by God's will, because I was a science student, so I was more comfortable with sciences all the time, and I knew I don't want to do sciences for my graduation, but I wasn't sure of what I had to do. So law was basically where I thought of going in and finding out what it is. And for the first 2 years, I was actually happy कि मैं ये सारा कुछ जो है वो पढ़ सक रहा हूँ. मैंने biology पढ़ी because I liked biology back then. फिर मैंने philosophy पढ़ी, and by the first 2 years, which is also a very good option the LUMS gives us, कि you can explore what you really. So a lot of my friends did economics, and they also shifted their majors. A lot of people came in law. So that's also some flexibility that you are given in LUMS, and that's what I was aiming for. But for the first 2 years, you do study some law courses. And I took Intro to Pakistani Legal System, Introduction to Legal Reasoning, and these were the courses that actually built my interest in law. So, model bilkul nahi pata tha, but I think it's a very effective model because it made me come into
of course
law.
When we go to for outreach presentations at different schools in Pakistan, whether it's Karachi or Islamabad, wherever. So this is a point that we highlight every time, that we understand that students right out of their A-levels program or FSC, HSC, they are not always supposed to know what they are to do in their life, which particular direction they have to take. So LUMS and a couple of other universities, only very few universities in Pakistan, give them this opportunity that they can, explore certain different courses, certain different disciplines at LUMS, and then at the end of the first year, let us know where they want to concentrate now. So, of course, thank you very much for your input on that. Dr. Sadaf, again, as I mentioned, that we go to different schools, हमें वहाँ पे काफ़ी सारे questions होते हैं. There's this one question that we always come across, अक्सर तकरीबन हर school में, where there are students who are considering the LUMS law program for their undergraduate education, and that is, why should they opt for the 5-year BA-LL.B honors model at LUMS and, of course, in any other university in Pakistan, as compared to the 3-year LL.B model that is being followed by international university programs?
Okay. So if you mean the 3-year model of legal education that's offered in Pakistan, that's, basically the London external program. And and a number of institutions across Pakistan, of course, offer that. Now, the thing is, when you see the LL.B program being offered in the UK, which is, a 3-year degree, students do study a range of legal subjects. They also have the possibility in those degrees of still taking some electives across other disciplines, doing other things, combining things to make the LL.B degree. But in addition to that, their legal training is not done at that stage even, right? So they go off and they have to do kind of internships. There's a further kind of examination process. So depending, obviously, there are 2 tracks that you either become a solicitor or a barrister, and that streamlining happens at a further stage. So the actual, expansive legal training extends to at least 5 years in that case. Now, in Pakistan, we do offer the London External Program, and I think it's a good program. It has, of course, it took a great deal of expertise to build that program, and I think there are wonderful lawyers that come out of that program. But what they miss out on is that kind of full-fledged university experience, like what Qasim has spoken about, of being able to occupy a campus which is so diverse and offers so many other perspectives from which they can study the law as well. Also, we encapsulate now our focus of study is Pakistani law. So when people graduate from our law degree, they are fully equipped to practice law in Pakistan. So there isn't that kind of steep learning curve that students still graduating from external programs where there's have to kind of enter into or climb onto in order to be able to transfer the skills that they have developed, right? Which is of kind of being able to follow lines of doctrine, be able to critically analyze cases and things of that sort. Those are transferable skills, but it takes, its own kind of learning process when they are situated here. Students here, so they also, and this is another aspect of legal training, that they are also acquainted with the procedural aspects of the law through our program in a way that they aren't through the University of London program. So I guess there are all sorts of reasons, and recently I guess this is, a perk of, this position that I get to speak with a lot of people who have employed our graduates. And they may be full of praise also for all sorts of their other associates who come from the University of London program. But some of them recently have said, with the sort of welcome of a student from LUMS in some ways, it feels more like home, right? Because they can immediately identify the statutes, the code where they have to go to in order to be able to find precedent and things of that sort. So there isn't that requirement for that kind of extensive training with them.
And I think it's not just about the technical understanding of the legal framework, of course, but as you mentioned, there are universities offering the London Model Law Program within Pakistan. That would just be for 3 years. But in most of these universities, the programs that are offered, the university life is missing, of course. LUMS is a very diverse community, as you mentioned. We have people from all the different corners of Pakistan, even from outside Pakistan as well. So at the end of the day, it's a very vibrant understanding of the way world works that you develop when you enroll in LUMS. It's the student societies, and as I mentioned in my every outreach presentation, whenever I go, my office starts at 8:30. I'm here 7:30 every day almost, and I can see campus activity students everywhere. Campus activity started, and it goes on sometimes as late as 2 a.m. in the morning. So there's a very happening campus. It's the whole university life that comes as a package with this and every other undergraduate and graduate program. How's your experience been with that? Do you sometimes see that have you ever thought that it puts you in some sort of a disadvantaged situation that you're spending 2 additional years when you can see your friends entering the market right after the 3-year, graduate program, undergrad program?
Actually, no, never. That's not the case.
इसका मतलब है कि हमने अच्छा program devise किया.
Yes, the program is very good, and also I think, and this is usually because Dr. Sadaf has covered almost all the technical and positive aspects of why taking a 5-year degree. I just give a student perspective, and that is that you graduate only once. So I mean, you have to
graduate another time as if you'll go for LLM. There'll be another graduation as well.
But an undergraduate degree is coming in your life only once.
Of course, absolutely.
And
I think I have the fondest memories of my undergrad education. MBA wala mujhe bahut thoda sa yaad hai, but yeah.
But the undergraduate is not coming back again.
Never again, yeah.
If you're giving it 2 years, I think you're not wasting your time, because those 2 years, that's additional time to work on yourself. And having worked on yourself 5 years would give you a product that would be, like Dr. Hassan said, appreciated in the market as well, if we're talking that term. So it's essentially the degree is phenomenal in terms of giving you the first 2 years to explore yourself, to understand yourself. And you pointed out a lot of student activities are happening. So those 2 years do give you time to engage in, let's say, sports activities, co-curricular activities. You go on competitions, you learn through community service. So that time, if used in the best way possible, does help you diversify your personality as a person. So I think rushing through 3 years, I'd prefer, and I actually made an active decision in preferring 5 years over that, because of the diversity and the expectations I had from LUMS, which were fulfilled.
And seeing your CGP, we can confirm you made the right decision. So, university education involves a lot of practical work as well, field work, research work, and you're working with the Pak-China Institute. You've also done some advisory work for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. How do you think LUMS played a role in that? In you reaching out to all these organizations, working very closely with them, of course. These are all very strategic positions, at the same time operational as well. So how do you think, were you able to connect the dots? हाँ, ये मैंने पढ़ा था अपने law program के अंदर, and I can see its implications here, its practicality of the program here.
Yes, and not just that, I think, so you mentioned two of my experiences, one at the Foreign Ministry and the second at the Pakistan-China Institute. You've not mentioned the Radio Pakistan. I also work at the Research Society of International Law. So my interest is in international law. And all of these positions that you've named and I have named, I've gotten them through LUMS. So LUMS has not just been giving me the skill set to actually work in these positions, but I got my Pakistan-China internship that later changed into an employment from LUMS. The law school does have this internship program. It helps you find internships during the summer vacations and also during the year. So I got that from LUMS. I got the Foreign Ministry internship from LUMS. And in fact, there were LUMS graduates that I worked with in the Foreign Ministry as well. So that was also a connection. So you get something to talk about when you're from the same university. And it's a good experience there as well. I got my RSIL internship from LUMS. So it's been LUMS that has put me out there in these positions and has also given me a lot of experience. तो वो जो classes में पढ़ा होता है वो वहाँ जाके implement जब होता है तो it just gives you a good feeling कि you know what you're trying to do, and obviously putting you out there, helping you through, just holding your hand and taking you to the place. That's something that LUMS has done for me. So I'd
now that you mentioned that LUMS has helped you in securing internships and employment at all these organizations, I would also like to reiterate that LUMS is partners with over 1,600 recruitment partners, local and international both. And we are maintaining a 95% employability index as well. And also I have an evidence to support what I've just said. So QS ranks us as top ranked in Pakistan when we talk about graduate employability in Pakistan and amongst top 200 universities worldwide. So I did have to say that. And now coming back to the more brass tacks admission side of today's program. So we have a very rigorous selection procedure. We have lots of applications to evaluate. We get some of the best applicants applying for our programs, whether it's the School of Business or the School of Law, Humanities, School of Sciences, undergrad or graduate education B as well. Dr. Sadaf, what matters the most? What is the most significant element that you say, ये वाला होना चाहिए, ये है, ठीक है, इसकी basis पे हम admission कर देंगे? I know we have a very holistic approach that we follow when we're evaluating a student's applications. It's not just the grades, it's not just the performance in the admission test, it's also your recommendation letters and your statement of purpose, and everything comes into play together. Of course, we understand that. But what are we really looking for? Who makes the cut?
I guess there's something ultimately about admissions processes, which they're too blunt an instrument, right? We're always going to lose people who could have flourished here. And I guess, but beyond that, I suppose it is a demonstration of a drive that people have, right? That they enjoy the learning process. And I guess, for me, that is what's being gauged in academic performance and even in standardized testing to a certain extent. So that kind of drive that they have to excel in what they do. And also, I guess, to demonstrate an ability to want to share that further in some way or the other, right? So I think any kind of extracurricular, which is community-based, which engages, multiple communities in other ways, these sorts of things matter. And when, it's, again, a holistic assessment. People who are, good in sports can demonstrate that they have taken that further. So not just at the level of a hobby, but they have joined teams, they have, excelled in those endeavors. I think, those things, of course
I
matter.
think in an indirect manner, you've also answered another question that I would have asked you later. कि मुझसे अक्सर जो है applicants पूछते हैं कि ECS matter करते हैं, extra curricular activities जो हैं, do they matter? And मैं उन्हें अक्सर बताता हूँ कि बहुत ज़्यादा उसकी ज़रूरत होती है. When we're evaluating, as I mentioned, we're factoring in everything, of course. तो अब आपने खुद भी कह दिया कि मतलब active effort to engage with the community to make sure that we understand that you are really serious about something, ठीक, and you want to pursue it and you will have an impact. So all these things matter, of course. When we talk about the testing that is required to apply to the undergraduate program, our audience is more aware than ever before, but I would still like to let them know that if you're applying to the undergraduate program at the School of Law, you could either go for SAT exam or you could go for the American College Testing, ACT. If you don't want to go for either of the two, then you can sit our LUMS Common Admission Test, LCAT. And when you're done with that, there's another requirement, that is the law admission test, which you will also have to pass. So, Dr. Sadaf, iski koi bearing hoti hai on the overall merit? Because as we understand, it's just that you have to pass this exam. It's clear it's a government requirement.
Right. So it's administered through the Pakistan Bar Council, and we don't make a differential on, so it is a requirement, but it's not a kind of a graduated assessment. Somebody who's, yes, it is a requirement for entry.
And regardless of the university you're applying to within Pakistan, of course. अब LUMS में कह रहे हैं किसी भी university में आपको
बिल्कुल,
pass
वो तो
करना है.
किसी भी law school में आपको वो pass
It's
करना
not an internal requirement. And what did you go for? SAT or ACT or MCAT?
I actually gave SAT and ACT, but I submitted my SAT scores because they were better.
So how was that experience?
The SAT
Was it just one
experience-
attempt or more than a single attempt?
It was 2 attempts. I gave 2 SAT attempts. The first one was okay-ish. The second one was good.
Okay.
I also did that because I was also applying to the US back then.
Right.
But LUMS was for me a better place to go to. So I came. I submitted those scores to LUMS, and I came to LUMS. I did give the law admission test that's administered by the Pakistan Bar Council, but at my time it just started, so I had to give it once I had secured my admission in LUMS. So I gave it afterwards, but essentially it was a requirement, so I had to give it.
So कितना time लगा तैयारी करने के लिए, और क्या suggest करेंगे कि कितनी देर पहले तैयारी start करें?
SAT, I think a SAT does give you a hard time, so you'd have to prepare, especially uska jo wo English wala section hota hai, that does take a while, and also the maths, because it's not just the exam but also the time frame that you're giving the exam, and that does make a huge difference. So you have to be on your toes throughout the test, and it's a long test, so it tests your stamina as well for like 6 hours, 5-6 hours. I remember we were in the testing hall, so a lot of things go into SAT, but for the LAT it was comparatively easier. And frankly speaking, I just had one book and I read it and I went to give that and I passed it. So there's not a lot of effort that goes into that. It's a very generalized test that comes in. So yeah, that's
2 महीने ठीक रहेगा मेरा ख्याल तैयारी के लिए. 2 महीने 3-4 घंटे every day.
that would work fine.
तो
More
okay.
than enough.
But again, हमारा कोई minimum score नहीं है SAT का. So whatever score SAT का जो आपका या ACT का जो है, you can apply with that. And as I mentioned, I can't of course, मतलब I would like to make sure कि सबको understand करते हैं इस बात को कि we again हम हर चीज़ को factor in करते हैं. So whatever score that you have SAT का या ACT का, just apply with it. It's a whole package that we take into account, and not just one particular component of the whole equation. Dr. Sadaf, we understand that we have, as I mentioned it, as we all agree that we are trying to create a very diverse community in LUMS. We want participation from all the different corners. There should be geographical diversity, there should be financial diversity, socioeconomic. What are some of the funding opportunities that are available to our students to that help them finance their undergraduate education?
Right. So LUMS offers financial aid. So as we know, it's a needs-blind admission process. But after that point, a great many students, and I can't recall at this point precisely, and I think it varies across schools, but there's a very large outlay that the university makes to ensure that those who have entered but do not have the capacity to pay either fully or at all for the university education receive financial aid. In addition, for academic high achievers, we have merit scholarships. and each school has its share of those, and those are awarded on a yearly basis. So financial aid, of course, is awarded at the outset, but then has to be renewed and can be varied over, the course of their studies. And then, of course, there's the National Outreach Program. And I believe that, the university makes a great deal of information available to students, and those who would qualify know about it at an earlier stage. But yeah, the National Outreach Program scholarships are available for the full duration of a student's study at LUMS. And we have traditionally always had, a fairly large cohort of students who come to the NOP program. Absolutely. And I think, for a lot of people who are interested in kind of, issues, societal issues that relate to the law, but also relate to other social domains. The law degree is both a guarantee, in a way, of kind of lucrative employment afterwards, and that might actually sway a lot of people to study law as opposed to other things. And also is a way in which they can see themselves making meaningful change, after their graduation, because it provides for a certain set of operations through which you can affect broader societal
Precisely.
change. Yeah.
And I would just like to mention, you talked about employability. That reminds me of another funding opportunity, the LUMS interest-free loans as well. So if you're applying to the undergraduate program, you could also request for a LUMS interest-free loan. And when your degree is done, and once you've been hired, we hope that most of our students get hired. This is what the data suggests as well, that within the first 6 months post-graduation, most of our students are hired. Then you can start paying that loan back to us. It's just the principal amount that you will have to pay back to us over a period of 5 to 7 years in very easy installments. Now, when we talk about employment, as this would be the last point of today's program, when we talk about employment, are our students only prepared to go and practice law in the courts, or are there other employment avenues available to them as well? And what would those be?
Sure. So there's a great deal of work, within the conventional legal field, which doesn't involve litigation necessarily directly going into the courts, as you say. But, a sizable proportion of our students and graduates do decide to go down that route. So this would be work that, correlates with what a solicitor does, let's say in the UK. So it's transactional work, and it's, office-based, and you're meeting clients in a different way. So there is that kind of work, but outside of, I guess, what we know as kind of conventional legal practice, there's a great deal of scope for employment of our graduates and other law graduates in other domains. So we have, at any one point, we have around 11 to 12% of our alumni that are employed by either NGOs or international non-governmental organizations. We have a growing cohort of students, and I think this is probably the case from across the social sciences as well, who are going into governmental employment. And that can be either through the kind of regulatory agency route, which might mean that those are students who have graduated and have some other kinds of experience, or go directly, whether it's a competition commission or the Security and Exchange Commission or various other regulatory agencies. Or, they're taking the civil services examination.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, so we do have, both of those
10% of CSS inductees are from LUMS.
Right, yeah, exactly.
And
so we've had some very high performers on
very high
CSS exam
As a matter
from
of fact, the most recent results we have got, first, second, third positions have all been secured by LUMS.
Right.
LUMS graduates. आपने तो नहीं CSS कर?
Man.
No. अच्छा, what do you plan on doing once you're done? You're about done, by the way.
No, there's a long way to go now. But litigation or somewhere around non-governmental international organizations would be my... I'd want to go in any one of those.
Okay.
So
So we wish you all the very best for that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Qasim. Thank you so much, Dr. Aziz, for
Thank
joining me
you.
today. And thanks to you as well for listening to this podcast. Just before I say goodbye to you, I would like to remind you that the last day to apply to LUMS undergraduate programs is 1st February 2023, and the last day to submit your supporting documents online, of course, would be 3rd February 2023. So make sure we're getting your application in time. Make sure you have created your account soon as you are done listening to this podcast, right? Because it's going to ask you to introspect a lot. It's going to ask, the application is going to require you to collect those documents and then submit to us. So make sure you're starting in time and you're submitting your application in time as well. Take good care of yourselves. If there's anything that we can help you further with, please write to us at admissions@lums.edu.pk. Allah Hafiz.